Very good morning to all of you. Thank you so much for having us here. A wonderful setup for a startup conference. So this is Gautham here from Blume Ventures. I'm also on board of Headstart Network. At Blume, we are a early stage fund. We are a $600 million early stage fund with about 200 plus investments in startups. Quite a few investments sector agnostic for the last 13 years. So today's conversation is all about what has changed in the last few years. Has something changed at all? So as founders, I'm sure a lot has changed. So the idea was to hear from the investor side on what has changed from our perspective, if at all anything has changed, the way we see startups, the way we see investments, the way we see risks. And that's what we are looking to cover here with four amazing panelists who all come from a very diverse set of experiences in working with startups. So next 40 minutes to 45 minutes, we're going to have a freewheeling conversation on how we see startup investments, especially what has changed in the way we see things in the last couple of years. So towards the end, we're going to have open conversation with all of you as well. So feel free to make a note of questions you would love to have. We will keep it as candid as possible. In fact, all the five of us from our conversation with each other, we love being candid and we can be honest with all of you here. So keep your questions, for us towards the end. So on that note, I would love to invite the four panelists and of course have a slightly longer introduction of all each of them once they're here. Thank you so much for joining us, Poornima. Karteek, thank you so much for joining us. Karteek from Java Capital. So PK Gopalakrishnan, sir, thank you so much for joining us. Sanil, thank you so much for joining us. Perfect. Okay. Can you hear me now? No? I'm assuming you can hear me now. Perfect. Super. So let's get started. So I'm going to start with the panelist on my left. Poornima, thank you. Perfect. I think it's working now. So we'll probably start with Poornima on the left. Poornima, thank you so much for joining us. And it'll be good to kickstart the conversation with a little introduction about you and the fund you represent. I know it's a very different fund from a lot of us sitting here. And it's taken that time from a venture cycle for India to have niche funds come in. So it'll be good for you to introduce on not just yourself and your journey, but also the fund and what made you start something as niche as in the gaming space.
Thanks, Gautam. Good morning, everyone, and I thank Kerala Startup Mission for giving this opportunity and also creating this wonderful event today. So my name is Poornima Nayak. I'm a chartered accountant by profession. Was working with EY Bangalore for about a decade, and then moved back to my hometown, Bangalore. So while I moved back, I was thinking what next, and coincidentally, so by coincidence, I got into venture capital space. So there was this lady Shailaja Rao. So she was an ex-COO of Robosoft Technologies. So during their journey in Robosoft, they had built a lot of games, and she also held leadership positions at 99 Games, which is another gaming company. So they came together and they said that we should build something for gaming founders at a pre-seed seed stage, a very nascent stage where they need really a lot of support in. We had seen a lot of funds in a little bigger rounds, say Series A, etc., supporting the gaming ecosystem, but there were very few or handful of them supporting at a seed and a pre-seed stage, and that's when this idea of VC fund from a small tier 3 town in India called Udupi came into picture. So a bit anecdote to that is that when we got a SEBI license, we did not have a town name in the list of it. We had to call up the SEBI guy saying that, look, this Udupi is not appearing, please add a town to that. So it started with that grassroots level of adding our name. So we are a CAT 2 SEBI registered AIF fund, and we have a thesis in investing in a pre-seed seed stage. We look at gaming founders from a very different point of view, that not just funding is what we give, we also help them build the games. We are in their journey in terms of their development of games, their testing phase, they are helping them in developing business model or any strategies for that matter. So end-to-end help is what we look at, and we are looking to build a community of gaming developers as such. And when we look at gaming, we are looking at, I would say, a casual and mid-core sort of a gaming, and not the gambling bit of it. So we're looking at a casual gaming space at this point. And we are very bullish on India being the next big thing in gaming with digitalization setting in. Yeah, so that's the small story.
Thank you so much. Sanil, can we have a quick introduction of yourself, please?
Thanks, Gautham, and good morning to everybody. Thanks to Kerala Startup Mission for this awesome event. I think I'm part of the Huddle for the first time, and it's massive. The organization of this is not easy, I'm sure. So, introducing myself, I'm a career banker, worked with a couple of banks before joining Yes Bank. I'm with Yes Bank for the last 8 years. For the last 6 months, 6, 8, 7 months, I've been heading a startup division. So, we always used to have a startup division within the bank. So now we are also, starting a new division because the market is growing like crazy. Certain set of startups were not being catered to with the existing team. So we wanted to ensure that we start from the bootstrap companies till a unicorn or even gigacorn stage. So that's the thought behind making me into the getting me into this particular team, because I was earlier in the transaction banking side of things as well. So we are a startup bank. I'm sure you would be aware of Yes Bank. We did not have an institution when we started as a bank, and hence we know all the pains and aches of all the founders who are sitting here also, for that matter, what all you go through on a day-to-day basis. But the only difference being that we have a guidebook or a rule book which has been given by RBI. We can't go beyond those 4 walls, so we can't pivot vigorously or whatever. So we will be taking a lot of calls, and hence we've been able to build a bank which is very tech friendly, very startup friendly. And I'm not saying this, the customers say this to me when we meet them, saying that one of the advantages which we bring to the table is that people in the organization understand the needs of the customers, be it a fintech or a non-fintech. We try to customize solutions for them, and that has given a lot of edge in banking many unicorns and the entire startup ecosystem with us for over the years now. So happy to be here, and I'm sure we'll have an interesting conversation going ahead. Thank you.
Thanks, Sanil. I think in your words, the original fintech. Yes. Yes, sir.
Good morning. My name is Gopalakrishnan, and I help run Malabar Angel Network, which is kind of based in Kannur in Kerala. As for me, I've worked about 30 plus years in different corporates, including Wipro. And very early, as early as 2014, the startup bug hit me, and I started investing in startups. And I've invested over 50 startups now. My areas of interest are space, drones, and all the latest technology startups. But more than that, about Malabar Angel Network, so it was started by local businessmen from Kannur, and then later on we kind of expanded. Today we have over 70, 80 members. Most of them are corporate professionals, people who are working in companies like IBM, Oracle, etc., people who are running their own IT companies in Trivandrum, in Kochi, etc. And we also have non-resident care lights as in Middle East, Europe, US, etc. So we have invested, Malabar Angel Network has invested in over about 8 startups. One of our latest investments has been in a drone company in Bangalore, which actually flies drones. But more than that, they use software and helps large enterprises to track their assets. So we are looking at innovation as our key area of focus. That's our primary theme, I would say. We are not so much focused on this sector or that sector, but if there's a very innovative idea and a very high quality founder, that will definitely attract our attention. That's what we have been doing. And as I was mentioning to you, angel investment scenario in Kerala is, there's a lot of work to be done, and I'm happy that Kerala Startup Mission does a lot of work in terms of trying to evangelize why startups investment should be considered as an alternate investment class for people from corporates, people from running their own business, etc. And I think we are getting there, but it probably will take a few more years to, put in a lot more hard work. Thank you.
Karteek, quick introduction.
Good morning, everybody. Happy to be here. Thanks, Gautham, for moderating this. This is my first time here in Kerala Startup Mission's Huddle Global. Very excited to be here. So many exciting faces, some familiar faces as well. Looking to learn a lot about investing and startups, this is great for our ecosystem in general. Coming to me, I'm a founding partner at Java Capital. We founded Java Capital in 2020, just before the pandemic has struck us. We invest primarily in seed stage and pre-seed stage. Mostly deep tech investments is what we do. Some of our notable investments are Agnicool and the E-Plane company. Coincidentally, both the founders are speaking today in the evening at 5 o'clock, so please do catch them as well. Apart from deep tech, we invest in climate tech and sustainability, and also B2B SaaS. We invest out of a SEBI registered Category 1 fund. Incidentally, we are also raising fund as we speak. So if any of you are interested in investing, please come and talk to me as well. This is what we should all, even though I'm a VC investor, and I'm also an entrepreneur, so every entrepreneur has to shamelessly promote his or her brand, no matter where you are. So that's what I am doing right now as well. But great to be here. Happy to have some interactions with all of you guys. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Karteek. Really soaking into the vibe of Huddle. It's my first time as well, at Huddle here. Really loving the energy, and so many sessions happening in parallel. Right? You rarely see an event at this scale with this kind of energy in any city in India. And I think more and more, all of us should really talk about these kind of experiences. So I hail from Bangalore. We see an event every week. But the experience of being at Huddle is something so different for me here. So thanks a lot, Karteek. I think Karteek started with a punch dialogue, right? So, and that's something that I always tell a lot of founders, whether it's at Blume or at Headstart. I keep sharing that, what is that one characteristic of a founder or an entrepreneur that you believe is the most important for their success, right? So a lot of times we say hard work, we say, some people say smart work, we need to hustle. But what something that I feel is the most underrated, understated virtue is the ability to be shameless, the ability to shamelessly pitch your vision, obsess over your vision, because one thing that never changes as an entrepreneur, you're constantly selling. You're selling your vision to get your first intern, your first employee, your co-founder, your first customer, your investor. To everyone, the odds are against you and you're constantly selling, right? So never feel shy. The last moment you should have felt shy is probably back at home. Leave that back, come here, network as much as possible for the next few hours that you're here. So on that note, Karteek, you also said that Java Capital is a COVID baby, right? So you were born just around COVID, the pandemic time, while you've been in the ecosystem for a long time. Uh, what has evolved for all of you, or the three of you at Java Capital, the way you've seen startups and investments prior to pandemic in your non-Java hat to in the last 3 years? Because when you set foot while starting Java, things may have been different. Whereas 2023, post-pandemic, the way you see startups probably is different, probably is not. So can you walk us through that?
Sure. I think COVID has been a blessing in disguise for us. Um, so we were able to execute a lot of deals very, very fast online, which couldn't have been possible in a pre-COVID sort of a world. We invested in companies based out of Delhi, in Jaipur, in Mumbai. You know, all of those investments, you know, we made via a Zoom call with the founders without even meeting them in person. And some of these companies are actually doing really well. They're kicking ass, and we couldn't be happier, right? If it were just sitting in Bangalore and having the founders come and meet us the old way, I think it could have been a lot more difficult. I think we evolved as we saw the COVID situation was evolving as well. And you know, for a young VC fund, it is always important to be in the news, you know, for good reasons, obviously. So we wanted to make sure that the investments keep flowing from Java even during COVID. But it's also a lot of learning, right? I mean, we missed some pieces of interacting with founders in person. You know, it's always different when you're speaking with the founders in person. You see their body language and you see their passion, and all these things don't necessarily come through in a Zoom meeting. So in a way, we're happy to be in post-COVID world. We're doing a lot more deals offline. We're having founders come over and do an IC with us in person. But having said that, you know, we always learn to be nimble and you know, be flexible, right? You know, we don't want to be seen as the old school VCs where there is a bureaucracy or a hierarchy that the founders have to go through. I think that's the biggest learning for us.
So it's probably opened up access. I think the most important piece I could take from that is moving online was something that all of us were a little slow with, and it's probably made it a non-negotiable for us.
So that's the only way that we knew. You know, when we started out online. So I think it was not beating your old habits and then trying to learn something new. This is from ground zero. You know, we were online, which was very, very helpful for us.
No, absolutely. And Gopalakrishnan sir, I would love to bring you in here. In the last 5 years, I've been noticing the increase in the number of angel investors in the overall Indian ecosystem. You know, sitting in Bangalore, in fact, I was just joking that, you know, there are a little more angel investors than startups in Koramangala. So, in Kerala, if you can walk us through from a Malabar Angel Network perspective, how do you see the evolution of looking at startup investment as or angel investment as an asset class? Have you seen that change in the last 3 to 5 years?
Yes, I think so. Like you said, in Bangalore, every neighborhood guy is an angel investor, but in Kerala, I think it's a struggle. And hopefully, as I said, in 3-4 years, we'll be there. So I think Kerala, by design, is a very conservative society. You know, we believe in fixed deposit, we believe in land, we believe in gold, we don't believe in anything else, right? We did not believe in public markets, but I think thanks to some very good infrastructure now being set up, public markets and the number of demat accounts in Kerala itself is becoming big time. But our experience now, thanks to COVID, post-COVID, because of this technology enablement of meetings, I think we have been able to gain a good number of investors into our fold. So before COVID, we were, I think, maybe 25 members, and now we are about 80 members. So, and we are able to attract people from all over the world. Keralites who have gone abroad. So I think technology has helped us to have this, pitch sessions virtually, meetings virtually, communications faster, easier, etc. We are doing, and there are 3, 4 other angel networks in Kerala who are trying their best to figure out how to get a framework in place. And I think more investments get publicized and more angel investors, people who have invested in startups come before forums like this and talk about their successes and failures. I think it will bring in a good flip to the whole angel movement. But just to talk about COVID, we invested in 2 startups, one agri startup and one edtech startup. Prior to COVID, maybe it was the wrong timing. COVID accelerated their business, but post-COVID, their business came crashing down, right? So COVID was, in that sense, a little bit negative for us from an investment point of view, but from a membership point of view, I think people are now really feeling it easier to converse, to understand, talk, learn about the startup ecosystem.
So probably the digital push increased the awareness towards the members as well.
Yes.
Sanil, I would love to bring you in. You bring a very different perspective being on the other side as a banker, working with a lot of startups on their growth journey. And like we started off saying, yes, bank has been probably the original fintech out of all fintechs that we are talking about. What has changed in the way banks have started working with startups? In fact, in the last 3 years, we've seen yes being on the forefront of enabling a lot more fintechs and other startups with their own, through different programs that you have. So if you can throw some light on what has changed in the way in a large enterprise, a large regulated enterprise like a bank, what has changed in the way you look at startups and you work with startups in today's world?
Thanks, Gautham. So basically what we have seen over the last 7, 8 years across banking, not just Yes Bank, is that there are departments getting set up within banks which will cater to startups. So I'm sure you would be aware there is a department which is in RBI as well, which handles fintechs and other startups. They're coming up with so many regulatory directives that what is a startup, who will be a startup, and all those things are in the pipeline. So what we have seen is technology has played a big role in terms of pushing a lot of things from a regular banking to a digitized world. Pandemic helped that a lot on the flip side. So what has happened so far is that we were able to take a different view on startups. What kind of businesses are they running? What kind of success are they getting, etc. So that is a different perspective that even our internal teams are looking at. So if I can tell you how a bank functions, there is a credit department within the bank which looks at each and every credit proposal which the relationship team brings in. They are the toughest people to handle in terms of convincing them that, okay, this business can grow and we should be able to lend money to them, because they are not wrong in their perspective, because bank's money is on trust, right? So each of us will be depositing some money into a bank, and then that money is being lent by the bank to customers. So we are the custodians, and we have to be very cautious about where the money goes in. So there is a different perspective on investors, how they look at investments rather than a debt from a bank. So what we are trying to do is we are trying to understand how the sectors are performing, fintechs, non-fintechs, agri-tech. So which are the kind of sectors which are in existence right now, which are doing well, which are in limelight a lot, and what kind of money is going into that. So we are also looking at the investment pattern into those. We are trying to evaluate the profitability matrix. So I'm sure all of you would be aware that there's a funding winter, all those things we talk about. Investors are also looking at profitabilities. So bankers have always been looking at profitability, because unless there is a profitable runway for a customer, we don't want to lend to them, because it's a public money at the end of the day. So that is one major change which is happening internally, is that the perspectives have changed from the bank's side. We are, like I was telling Gautham, that for the last 5-6 months, we have launched a couple of products for startups in terms of lending. We've already done some around 90 to 100 crores of lending in that program. And half of it is without collateral. A bank lending to a customer without collateral is very difficult or very unheard of kind of a thing. So we are also changing our own processes, our own thought, our own internal guidelines, etc. But within the RBI regulations, of course. And the second thing is, in terms of technological changes which we have seen, I'm sure all of us will be traveling to multiple cities. We can travel without money. We can travel only with a mobile phone, and you can do all kind of transactions out there. So we are trying to promote partnerships out there. As we speak, my colleagues are meeting a few fintechs on the opposite side in terms of which all can be our partnerships on ONDC, new technology which is coming up from the regulator. So that is another angle which has come up in the bank, that we should work with the startups, not compete with startups. It's a symbiotic relationship that we are looking at, not just as a banker, as a go-to-market strategy for the startups also. So we have ourselves created a marketplace called Yes Connect, wherein we have listed around 20-25 startups, fintechs, non-fintechs. If there is an SME or a customer of the bank wants to avail certain solutions, they can go there, digitally get themselves on board to those kind of solutions and go live within no time. So that has never been done before, or none of the banks would have thought about such things a few years back. Now most of the banks are in the same bandwagon. How can we partner with startups, and how can we create more ease in transaction processing? Our story with PhonePe would be probably heard of by some of you. PhonePe was a small entity when they approached us, and we put in our faith, and we believe that okay, this can be a new big thing. UPI can be a new big thing. Look at where PhonePe is right now. So a good part of that success story belongs to a partnership between Yes Bank and PhonePe as well. So I would believe all the banks, most of the private sector banks, I would say, are on the same processes in terms of certain lending thoughts from their side, and of course the partnership being one of the major things which is being driven. Thanks.
Thanks a lot, Sanil, on that. I think it's important for startups to be aware of these kind of access programs. In fact, I keep emphasizing on the fact that as startups, we should always look out for alternate source of funding. Being a VC fund, I definitely do highlight saying that don't take equity money unless you're really ready for it. There are definitely other forms of capital, because what you don't realize is equity capital is the most expensive form of capital, because you don't pay interest, but you pay a pound of flesh, which is your shares, right? So be very careful, because it's not a destination. The game really begins when you raise your equity round. So on that note, I would love to bring in a very specific question here, because as a fund, Poornima, you are into gaming. We as a VC ecosystem in India, we're probably into the second cycle of VC, and we've started seeing niche sector-focused funds in the last 5 years, barring a couple of them who were there for a decade, like Omnivore and all of them who were in the agri space. So I think very interesting to see you having a strong thesis on gaming. In the last 3 years, thanks to pandemic, it was not just the digital adoption. We also saw 2-3 things that emerged. One was, if I have to talk about India being India 1, India 2, India 3, in India 2 and India 3, we realized that one way of using our idle time or free time was on entertainment. And the largest amount of time spent by India 2 and India 3 happened to be on YouTube, Instagram Reels and games. Having said that, linking that to the fact that post-pandemic there is a probability of higher amount of time being spent on digital apps, including entertainment apps, how do you evaluate a startup that comes to you in the gaming space? Is it very similar to how probably Karteek and Gopalakrishnan sir they do, or is it something different? What do you see in a gaming startup?
Thanks for that introductory note. I was also actually thinking on India 1, 2, 3 and how post-pandemic, of course, during pandemic, the gaming was boom. Everyone was playing. Everyone had so much free time. But the reality actually struck in after the pandemic. So we are a post-pandemic VC and we are looking at gaming now with a fresh set of mind. When I say that, people have accepted gaming. People are allowing their kids to play games. They're saying that, okay, this helps in analytical thinking, etc. So that acceptance has increased, but the market that was there during pandemic is not there anymore, but the thinking has changed. So that's one good thing for us, because the acceptance level of gaming has become better. So the new generation is looking at it very differently. What do we look in founders, or in a gaming company? I would say pretty same as what other VCs would do, but we do have a little bit edge on how the founders should be. So when I say that, no, we want the founders to have spent some time in gaming. When I say that they would have built some games in the past, either during their employment or in their entrepreneurial role, so that they know the industry, because the gaming industry works very differently. The way you monetize is very different. Way you earn your or acquire your users is very different from any enterprise SaaS or any other this thing. So a little bit background on how to build games and how to earn money out of it is very important for us when we look at gaming company. So therefore we thrive on founder market fit very importantly, because we come in at a pre-seed seed stage. Therefore the product is almost not there. We look at POC at that point. We help them in developing it and making it an MVP thereafter. So largely thrive on founder market fit. And also their idea about competition, because a lot of games are getting built. Every 5 games are being uploaded in Google Play Store every single day. So awareness about your competition, how much are they actually earning, what is your scalability, because at the end of the day it has to be VC investable business. It cannot just be one time game during pandemic and then it loses out of sight. So the retention strategy is also very important. So that's something, if you are aware of it, that's a good thing. And then we help them further mentor it, help them build business models, etc. So that's something we look at. And also the or a geographical or a target audience. So when a founder comes to us saying that we are building for all, we feel that's not right, because you cannot build a game for all. There has to be a separate set of an audience. It could be a women audience, it could be age-wise cohort, it could be location-wise. So a little bit idea on geo is also very important, the target audience, and of course the knowledge of tech and game building. So these are the few things we really look at.
So there was a very interesting point that Poornima mentioned. I'm not sure how many of you noticed. I'm going to get Karteek to answer that. Towards the end of this panel discussion, I would want you to touch upon one point she mentioned, which is It's not enough if you're just a good product, but you should be VC fundable. So Karteek, towards the end, I want you to touch a little on what does it mean to be VC fundable? How is it different? What if I'm a good product and I'm making money, right? So I'll come to you, but I just wanted to answer that.
Sure.
So I'm going to do a quick, I won't say it's a rapid fire, but we're going to have a quick round of answering here. Everyone's going to, share whatever they have in mind candidly. Poornima, in the gaming space, time to bring this out. It's not been easy as investors, right? While it's probably a very cool sector, it's a very regulated sector in certain aspects of gaming. And this year, hence we've seen a lot of gaming startups also hit by it. And more importantly, a lot of investors hit by it. So your quick thoughts on the impact of regulations in any industry on an investor's decision making.
Yeah. So just to touch upon that, So GST and TDS has been tedious on the gaming founders. When I say gaming founder, one sector of gaming, which is real money gaming, as a thesis, while we don't invest in such real money gaming companies, but yeah, from an overall gaming sector point of view, investors have been taking a back step. I would say the allocations have reduced to that extent because there is a lot of controversies, litigations, and a lot of cases being held at a lot of high courts and supreme courts thereafter. So allocations to that space has definitely come down. But that being said, for any founder, gaming or non-gaming, regulatory compliance has to be in the mind. It cannot be like, okay, today I'll do the board meeting and after 10 days I'll get my company secretary do all the records. I think the compliance should come in with him in the mind that, okay, I have to be compliant, because at pre-seed, seed stage, it may not be as important, but when you go for a bigger round, all the investors' lens will be on how have you kept your books, the documentation, the compliance to paying your PF or paying the TDS becomes very important. And as a chartered accountant, I know that comes naturally for us to see all this first and then go ahead with any investment point of view.
I think the point to make a note here is, while a lot of us have bias towards the product and the problem we are trying to solve for, let's build it from day one with discipline on compliances and regulatory aspects, so that 3 years down the line, 5 years down the line, all the hard work need not get hit by the effort we put in. So Karteek, I would love to bring you in here. One is, of course, there could be many nice products like what Poornima said that also makes money, but what makes a startup VC fundable? Why is that very important? What's in it for a VC? That, if I can link it to, I know Java has been at the forefront of investing in clean tech and deep tech. All your investments have been ahead of time. So why don't you link that with what makes an innovation VC fundable?
I think that's a tough question, Gautham, but I'll try to do my best. I think what makes a startup VC fundable is the ability. Should I try that? So the ability for the company to be able to grow, right? I think that's one of the biggest things that any VC would look for. The scale. They're not able to hear. Can you guys hear me now? Yeah, okay. I think one of the most important things that VCs look for in a startup company is its ability to grow, right? Which means how big the market is. You may be a product which is making enough money, you may even be profitable, right? But if you're making... All right. So where was I? I think you can also be a profitable company, right? I think that's great. But the question is, why is a VC not funding you, even though you're a profitable company, right? The larger question here is, is your company growing fast? Is it operating in a large enough market? Is it something that gives this company the ability to scale faster, right? Which means if you're a services company, right? Every time you need to add, a 10% increase in your revenue, you need to increase your expenses also to that extent, right? Then that is not a clearly scalable company, right? There is only so much scope where that company can actually go. But if you're a product-led company where most of your expenses is going into innovation in the product, and then just keep adding new clients, adding more features, that's where you're spending a little bit of money. The differential is significantly higher, and your company can actually grow much faster. So those are some of the broader angles what the VCs look for. And coming to the question of deep tech investments that we have made, right? I think as a founder yourself, right? You have to put yourself in the shoes of a VC and think how they're investing, right? When we invest, we look for those companies which can grow significantly large, potentially $1 billion company, which means that the market itself has to be significantly large, right? So there has to be some potential, or at least there has some signs that the market will grow into a large market within a 5 to 10 year period of time, because VCs operate on a 10-year cycles. From the time I invest, I want to exit within a 10-year period, and I want to make sure that all of my companies, at least some of my companies, grow. And when we invest, we do know that most of the companies that we're going to be investing in will fail, and that is part of the game, right? Which means that it is all the more important for us to find those one or two companies which can grow really, really large, so that they can make up for losses in the rest of the companies. So which is why we build a portfolio of companies, right? So there has to be a strong potential more than anything for the startup to be able to raise VC money. Otherwise, you're better to stick with traditional money and maybe go to Sanil for some debt funding. He'll be happy to give you that.
So the very important point here for all of you to note is, end of the day, VCs are capitalists, right? So they are in the business of selling capital. And it's important that as entrepreneurs, VCs are also entrepreneurs. They raise money from other investors, and they are in the business of selling capital, and they need to make a certain return out of it, right? And hence they have their own thesis on what they believe will return the money that they expect to make and be able to return to their investors. So I think these are aspects you need to keep in mind. So a lot of times when you fail to raise an investment, you are not the reason for the failure, right? It's probably because there's no investor founder fit, right? The investor is probably not not in a way inclined to invest in the sector that you're building for. You may, like what Karteek said, you may be building a very profitable business. It's just that he's probably committed a certain percentage of return to his investors, and there are only certain industries that probably can return that much of profit or that much of a scale within a certain amount of time, right? So the most important piece is it's also time bound in terms of putting in the money, and the clock starts ticking. So keep that in mind in terms of, and hence it becomes important for all of you to also figure out who is an investor you need to meet, right? So there are different investors, which is where you would also hear from Gopalakrishnan sir on how angel investors work. Different people work based on different IRRs in mind on what they would want to make out of it, how much appetite they have from a risk, and how much time that they can wait before they get the return out. Sir, one quick, any thoughts you have on what makes a startup fundable in your lens as an angel investor, and what do you see while evaluating a startup? But most importantly, what are some of the sectors you have started seeing in the last 3 years emerge from a startup side in Kerala that you believe your members have started appreciating and have started getting a little more aggressive to start investing in?
Okay, so let me say that a VC as an Excel sheet, a VC as an IRR, and an angel investor doesn't have any of those. Okay, because we come much earlier than the VC. So I think we primarily look at the, as I said, the innovation, the uniqueness of the idea, and whether a businesses or a set of business can be built over a period of time, because the quality of the entrepreneur or the quality of the founding team is so good that they can build a business out of this idea, right? And of course, other things like large market, all that have to be there.
That is emerging of interest for your members.
No, that's what I said. I don't think we have one sector.
There's nothing.
Yeah, we, like I said, if I look at last 3 investments, the latest investment which we did last week was in deep tech, drones, software and analytics using drones. The one before that was in an energy saving efficiency hardware startup. The one before was in a startup which was in urban farming. Right, so I think it's as diverse as it could be.
So very, I totally relate to what sir is saying, because as early stage investors, all of us have been early stage investors. We don't have the luxury of picking, you know, picking too many niche things out of what we want, because you end up betting on the founders a lot more, right? So just marrying a point of what Karthik and Sir said, one point that all of you should remember in terms of how investors look at it, especially early stage. This is something that we do at Blume as well. We go ahead and say, 40% of what we evaluate is actually just the founders and what they bring to the table, and the diversity of what the founders bring to the table, right? Another 40%, like what Karthik said, what could possibly be the end market state? How big could this possibly be? Because then the potential or the probability of this becoming big enough for us to make money is also higher. And the balance 20% is what you go and say, what is the environment looking like? What are the other investors looking like? What are the other opportunities in the market? What is the capital markets looking like? So I think it's usually these two factors that early stage investors over index on, which is how big can the market get and the people who really run it, right? So these are the two things we usually. So closing thoughts, Sanil. How important is it for, because we've been touching on the what investors look at, and Karthik talked about you should not necessarily always look for equity investment. So your closing thoughts on looking at the alternate source as well. In your case, let's assume debt. When is the right time for an entrepreneur to even look at debt? By nature, many Indian entrepreneurs I have met have felt it is taboo to take debt. Some of them come from that angle, or we lack a little discipline when it comes to servicing debt. So what is your 2 cents for entrepreneurs who are looking at debt?
Okay, so debt is something which is very similar to equity evaluation at our end also. So only thing is it's crunched into a shorter time frame. So investors will look at a longer horizon for returns to come in, profitability to come in, etc. But as a bank, we look at debt as a very short, fructification of the interest payments, servicing of the the debt installments, etc. So we look at the founders as well. So we also look at the background of the company. What are the backgrounds of the founders? Is it going to be sustainable as a business? What kind of sectors are they in? All those things we also look at. The only differential being that the company has to be in revenue stage. We don't fund anything beyond before the revenue stage, because there has to be servicing of our debt. So minimum revenue stage and an X amount of turnover per annum is what we look at on a regular basis. It cannot be seasonal kind of a thing. And of course the potential for the company to be in existence and do decently well, and towards profitability if it is not already profitable. So one key point here is that we also fund companies which are in losses. So we understand that startups are not always in profit. So there is always a trend to become profitable in whatever duration. But we also are betting on debt being given to people who are still in the negative balance sheet, but with some visibility on becoming profitable in say 12 months, 18 months, 24 months kind of a horizon. And in terms of probably the reason why there is a reluctance to get into a debt is because probably the bookkeeping or the house in order has to be proper, because banks will assess the balance sheet and how the GSTs have been filed. So I can give you an example of a case which we rejected last month. The guy was not filing his GST on time. It was getting delayed. So our credit committee said that this is not it could be a problem with the regulator as well, because it's a GST, it's a government due. So these small things also it's not a small thing actually, it's these kind of disciplinary things also can prevent a bank from lending to a particular startup. So it has to be, the house has to be in order, and we would like to look at more opportunity to get into growth kind of companies to fund, so that although we are not getting any equity out of it, but our lending is safe and we get into a good relationship which is going over the period of time. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Sanil. I think in the interest of time, we will have to wind up the panel here. But the panelists are all available for one-on-one catch-ups after this. So feel free to engage with anyone that you would want to. Uh, I've really enjoyed my last 1 hour moderating with four amazing panelists. Uh, just a couple of quick points to summarize and leave you with thoughts. Uh, Not necessarily, raising a round of funding is a destination or a goal that you need to set for yourself, right? Servicing your customers is probably the main goal you'll have to set. Some businesses are fundable, some are not, and that's where you will have to speak to people to understand: are you a fundable business? So that's another piece you'll have to remember. And what kind of investor at the stage which you are is someone you need to reach out to, and what does that investor look out for and all these things come when you, like Karteek said, shamelessly go out and speak to people, ask for support. You have access to mentors who you can take help from, and these kind of networking events where you can meet people and seek all of this. And finally, there are alternate sources for the right kind of businesses beyond just equity, right? So on that note, I would love to, thank the panelists here for their time, and wish all of you in your journey as an entrepreneur or in helping other entrepreneurs build their businesses. May a million entrepreneurs, bloom in India, is how we usually say, thanks to, the name of the fund. But all the best to all of you. Look forward to interacting with all of you at some point during the day. And thanks to Kesam for hosting Huddle and also bringing us here to the same stage.
Thank you so much. Behalf of KSM, there is a small token of appreciation. I would like to invite Gautham to distribute to all the panel members. Thank you.